It's the eve of Halloween, and there were some terrifying performances in Week 8. But should we or should we not be panicking right now? Welcome back, Endgame. It's Chris. I'm going to talk about some players who disappointed in Week 8 and maybe have been disappointing all season long, and I'm going to let you know, should you or should you not be panicking? All right, let's start as we always do at the running back position. And of course, we have to start with Jonathan Taylor. What has happened to Jonathan Taylor this year? I don't get it, because it's not like Jonathan Taylor, is an old running back at the end of his career, like an Ezekiel Elliott or something, where you can just say, oh yeah, chalk it up, he's on the downside of his career. No, this is a running back, 24 years old, in the prime of his career, one of the best running back prospects, an elite running back prospect, and just not happening for him. And look, I thought the move to Sam Ehlinger would help Jonathan Taylor because they would run the ball more. But really, it didn't help anybody because this offense is totally inept with Sam Ehlinger. They can barely move the ball, barely get any yards, barely throwing the ball. And then to add insult to injury, you had to watch Nyheim Hines catch a pass and score a touchdown while Jonathan Taylor blocked for him. Not looking good for Jonathan Taylor, but look, again, talking about a 24-year-old running back in the prime of his career who is very, very talented. I have to believe that at some point Jonathan Taylor will get going this year. I can't believe Jonathan Taylor will be a bust all year long. He's too talented. But I'm starting to panic. I'm not going to lie. I'm starting to panic. So I'm going to put the panic level medium on Jonathan Taylor, but it's inching closer and closer to being high. And a player I've mentioned recently had a great start to the season, but there's signs that it could be unraveling for Leonard Fournette. Now look, Leonard Fournette has been, by all accounts, terrible on the ground this year. But he's been saving his days in fantasy with his receiving work and his touchdowns. And he did save his day again, kind of, with a touchdown in Week 8. And he caught two, garbage time passes at the end of the game to again kind of save his day. But here's why you should be panicking. Because his usage is going down and down every week. And this offense cannot run the ball at all. And there's going to have to be changes here. They have the kind of what they call the mini bye here with the Thursday night game, getting the long week. You got to think there's going to be changes. And Rachaad White, whatever you think of him, has looked better than Leonard Fournette lately. He's making big plays. He looks explosive, and this team needs to do something. I'm not saying that they're going to turn right to Rachaad White next week, but you got to think sooner or later this is going to switch, and they are going to start leaning on Rachaad White because he just flat out looks better right now. And despite what people thought about him in pass protection, he's doing an adequate job in pass protection. So, yep, Leonard Fournette hasn't sunk your team yet, still scoring a decent amount of fantasy points. But man, all signs are pointing to this coming to an end. Now is the time to get off Leonard Fournette if you can. I'm putting the panic level high for Leonard Fournette. And then Week 8 saw the return of DeAndre Swift, and it didn't quite go the way we expected it to go. On the plus side, he did play 52% of the snaps. Not great, but DeAndre Swift is never a guy who's going to play 70, 80, 90% of the snaps. On the downside, Jamal Williams had 10 carries and also scored 2 touchdowns. Now, DeAndre Swift did also score a touchdown, and he did catch 5 passes, but this is not really what we were looking for from DeAndre Swift. Maybe we can chalk this up to first game back from injury, and they weren't going to roll him out there and give him a ton of touches. Or maybe this is just how it's going to go. And if that's the case, DeAndre Swift is not going to be a top 5 rest of season running back. But still, I think it's too soon, to be full-fledged panicking about DeAndre Swift. He's still catching passes. He's still getting chances to score. But I am going to put the panic level medium here for DeAndre Swift. If it doesn't look better in Week 9, then the panic level may be getting high. All right, now for a running back who I've always felt has been like a great buy low, kind of undervalued running back, and that is David Montgomery. But we're seeing a change here over the last 2 weeks with Khalil Herbert getting more and more work. Now in Week 7, David Montgomery was still the lead back, but we did see Khalil Herbert eat into his touches quite a bit from what we're used to. And then what did we see here in Week 8? Khalil Herbert actually had one more carry than David Montgomery. Now granted, Herbert didn't catch any passes and Montgomery did catch some passes, but still, this is not what you want to see if you have David Montgomery, who you were banking on to be, every week kind of set and forget RB2. if Herbert continues to look good, and he has looked very good this year, it's going to be hard for the Bears to keep him off the field. So, there's a chance here, like an outside chance that David Montgomery gets traded. Who knows? You never know with these things. But if he doesn't, we got to start thinking this is going to be closer to a split than we would like. And we could see, kind of like with Fournette and Rachaad White, Khalil Herbert eventually become technically the 1A here. So I'm going to put panic level high for David Montgomery, because without that, elite volume, snap share, and usage, his value will take a huge hit. And then finally, let's end with all the Jets running backs. Like all of them. Like panic level sky high on all the Jets running backs. It's obvious that Breece Hall is just a freak, elite running back prospect, because they all struggled today, and worse than that, it was a 3-man committee. Not only did Michael Carter get carries, not only did James Robinson get carries, but Ty Johnson even got work today. And this is going to be an issue for all these running backs going forward. You got to think James Robinson's going to start to carve out a bigger role. They traded for him. Michael Carter's role is going to be what it is. But if Ty Johnson is involved, that's going to spell doom for all these running backs. So right now, panic level has to be sky high for any Jets running back not named Breece Hall. And unfortunately, we won't see Breece Hall the rest of the season. So panic level high for any Jets running back. All right, now let's move on to wide receiver, and we got to start with Davante Adams. Was it the flu? Was it just one of those games? Not really sure, but this was a matchup that he should have absolutely been able to exploit. The Saints, without Marshawn Lattimore, without any of their starting secondary really, Davante Adams should have had a huge week here, and he didn't. 1 catch, 3 yards, that's it. That's all you get Davante Adams involved in a game like this. Not only that, in a game where the Raiders are trailing pretty much the entire game and half the throw, Davante Adams has 1 catch for 3 yards. Now, Davante Adams has been very good this year. I expect Davante Adams will be very good the rest of the year. I'm going to chalk this up to just one of those games. Maybe he just, the flu just took too much out of him, whatever it was. But for me, I'm keeping the panic level low on Davante Adams. Now, a wide receiver that I really like, had a great start to the season, and we're kind of seeing it regress here a little bit, is Courtland Sutton. This is now 3 straight games where Courtland Sutton has under-delivered. Now, you could chalk up last week to the fact that it was Brett Rypien, and he obviously was targeting Jerry Jeudy. But this week, Russell Wilson played, and Russell Wilson actually looked kind of good this week. Like, maybe the best we've seen Russell Wilson look outside of that one game against the Raiders. And Courtland Sutton was hardly involved. Now, the Jaguars, unbeknownst to me, do have a very good corner, and he did shadow Courtland Sutton. I did not expect that to happen, which could explain why Jerry Jeudy and even KJ Hamler had better games here. But still, this is 3 games in a row where Courtland Sutton has been very underwhelming. I'm not going to put the panic level high yet for Courtland Sutton. It's getting there, but it's definitely panic level medium for Courtland Sutton. Another wide receiver who started red hot and has really cooled off is Christian Kirk. He did have a bounce back week 7, but then once again, week 8, hardly involved in this offense, not really heavily targeted, not catching a lot of passes. Now, granted, we knew this was a terrible matchup. The Broncos defense is legit. For as bad as that offense has been, the defense is still one of the best defenses in the entire NFL. So I can't be too panicked about Christian Kirk here, but I think we just have to accept that this is who Christian Kirk is, and this is who he will be. He's a guy on any given week, can go off for your team, help your team win, but he can also have weeks like this where he does next to nothing. So Christian Kirk, from here on out, I'm going to put panic level medium, because you shouldn't be relying on Christian Kirk as your every week, set and forget type wide receiver. Just know he's going to be very volatile rest of the season. And now from some wide receivers who started hot and have kind of cooled off to a wide receiver who just feels like he can't get it going, and that is Rashad Bateman. He did make his return here Thursday night in week 8, but he left the game early in the third quarter with that foot injury and never came back. Gave your team a nice solid 0 for this week. And look, I don't know what this injury is. All Harbaugh said at the time was it's a mid-foot injury, which that can be very scary. And I got to think this injury is really lingering, and it might affect him the rest of the season, to be honest. But right now, panic level has to be high for Rashad Bateman. He absolutely cannot be in your lineup until further notice. Now, after week 9, the Ravens do have their bye. Maybe in week 11, when they come out of the bye, he'll be fully healthy. fully ready to go. But at this point, you've got to see it before you can put him in your lineup. And then George Pickens looked like he was really coming on, and then faced an actual real secondary in week 8, and oh my gosh, was it bad. 0 catches on 3 targets. Now I get it, the entire Steelers offense was bad, but still, 3 targets, 0 catches. When he finally played a real secondary, that has to be concerning. Now, George Pickens, I think, is a great talent. He's athletic, he's a freak, but this showed him that he's still a rookie and he's still got a ways to go before he becomes an every week, put him in your lineup type of guy. Now, I get it, most people aren't counting on him to be that, but myself and some others played him in certain leagues this week thinking, well, at least he's got upside, and he didn't have any upside. I do think better days will be ahead for Pickens. The Steelers' schedule does soften up down the stretch, but right now, George Pickens, nothing more than a desperation. Throw him in your lineup, cross your fingers, and hope for the best. So panic level high for George Pickens. And then on to quarterback, I got to talk about Tom Brady again. Now, granted, Tom Brady had a decent fantasy game. He threw for over 300 yards, he had a touchdown, no interceptions. But that's not why we should be panicking on Tom Brady. We should be panicking on Tom Brady because it's obvious Tom Brady is not Tom Brady right now. Missing easy throws to Mike Evans in the end zone, to Kyle Rudolph in the end zone, bouncing passes to Chris Godwin. This is not what we expect from Tom Brady. And you got to think, with, again, talked about with Fournette, kind of this mini bye here where they get some extra days. You got to think the coaches are going to try to figure out ways to get this running game going, because right now, without any running game and with Tom Brady struggling, this offense can't do anything. They have to figure something out. And Tom Brady in fantasy, he's been okay, but he hasn't really been great. He hasn't been elite. He's not a guy who can be started in a 1 QB league, and even in a Superflex 2 QB league, he's just kind of like that borderline, you don't have a better option kind of guy. So with the way Tom Brady looks right now, the way the offense looks right now, and everything going on in his life, I've got to put panic level high for Tom Brady. And then I'm just going to say right now, I apologize to anybody that I told to start Derek Carr. What an absolute bust Derek Carr has been, and what an absolute bust he was again in week 8. In a great spot, like I talked about, against the Saints secondary, missing every single player. Derek Carr went out there and laid a total egg. An incredible egg. Just killed your fantasy team. Lost me a matchup. Like literally lost. I have Alvin Kamara, and I'm going to lose because of Derek Carr. I'm just here to say right now, panic level is high on Derek Carr, and I will never, ever again, the rest of the season, recommend anybody start Derek Carr. Do not play Derek Carr anymore. Done with him in fantasy. All right, now you know about some players you should or should not be panicking about. You need to know who to start, who to get off waivers, who could boom. Check out our Week 9 playlist right here. We got you covered. Everything you need to win in Week 9.